Hi everybody, Bobby Biddle here to introduce you to another one of our Color Guard insiders. Tim Hinton, who hosts the podcast, The Marching Roundtable, is an important and very encouraging voice of support in our marching arts activity. So it was a real pleasure to get to sit down and talk to Tim.
Well, I was always musical. I started banging on the piano when I was in first grade. And so by the time I was in second grade, I was in piano lessons already. And I just loved music. I wanted to make music, clearly. By the time I was in fourth grade, I was playing the French horn. So I was very lucky that I had a wonderful elementary school teacher, Mr. Chrisman, and he was a horn player too. He started me since I had a good ear already as being a musician at that point. He had me start on French horn. I was so tiny in the fourth grade that I had a little beginner tiny size French horn. And I don't know, I guess I progressed up to the big one by maybe seventh grade or something, sixth or seventh grade. So I did that. So I played piano and French horn all the way through. Got into the marching arts, of course, in the marching band when I went to high school in 8th grade. The school where I went was 8 through 12. So started marching, loved it, tried out for drum major right away, and just was super, super involved in it. It was really important to me all throughout my high school career. So I did all the stuff that you do, all state band and private lessons and solo performances, and a lot of it on French horn, also playing piano that whole time through. And then went to college at the University of Tennessee, which I loved, and was in part of the Southland Marching Band. Marched for 3 summers of drum corps with the Phantom Regiment. First 2 on French horn bugle, which they don't march anymore, unfortunately. And then became an instructor, became a band director, was a band director for 10 years, first in North Carolina and then in Atlanta for the last 8. And then I sort of burned out being a band director and started, the whole time I'd been creating shows for my own band. I'd been writing drill, writing music arrangements, started writing for other bands. And so at a certain point when I decided I couldn't be a band director anymore, there were a lot of people that were interested in hiring me to write for them. So my arranging career started then. And I've been doing that for 25 years, writing arrangements, writing drills, helping design shows, the whole show concept, the whole thing.
I was really curious to get to know more about the origins of Tim's Marching Roundtable podcast. We're all familiar with it and have listened to it from time to time, but I wanted to know more about its beginnings.
The way I always tell the story is a bunch of friends and I in the 2010 season were sitting around sort of grousing about the state of the marching world. We weren't loving what we were seeing on the field for whatever reason. Our point of view was that we were frustrated with where the activity was going, with what people were doing, the choices that we're making. Plus, at the same time, we were having conversations because we kept seeing band shows where we kept thinking, oh man, I say this all the time. You watch a show and you think, oh man, if that band director and his staff just knew a couple things, this could be so much better. And so we were sitting around grousing, we were sitting around complaining, and at a certain point we were like, well, maybe rather than just sitting around complaining, we should actually do something. So we started doing something to help. So 3 friends and I started the Marching Roundtable podcast. This was early 2011. And we were like, let's just do 2 things. Let's help people get the information they need so they can do better. And then let's have a place where people can have conversations. We thought that there were a lot of places where there were difficult things that people needed to talk about that they weren't talking about. And we were like, well, how can we facilitate those conversations? So we thought, well, let's have a place where we can have those difficult conversations. We can sort of get deep into some of these really hard things to talk about and create that safe place. And that's been really wonderful that we've done that over all this time. The other thing that was great was right away we realized that people were willing to talk to us. It was really gratifying that we found that all these really smart, talented, amazing designers were willing to share their expertise, and nobody said no. And so over all these years, everybody's always been willing to share what they know and help everybody else do better. And it just reminds you how generous and kind and people are and how much they want everybody to be good. They often have these very, very, very top people in our activity, designers and instructors, and they'll say, man, I remember all the stuff I didn't know when I was young that I wish somebody had told me. So that's why they get to feel like they give back to the audience in that way.
Tim's podcasts are so enlightening in so many different ways. And if you've listened to them over the years, you take away many different things from them that are helpful and are sometimes also entertaining. So I wanted to ask Tim what he feels is the most important things that are accomplished during these podcasts when he talks to all of these incredible people throughout our activity.
Well, there's been over 850 podcasts at this time, and I think all of them are different.
Right.
The ones that I enjoy the most, I like the long form idea where people take time to have a conversation. And I tell people, I think this is what's great about podcasts. Podcasts have become very popular lately, and people enjoy this sort of, let's stop and let's listen for 30 minutes. Let's listen for 45 minutes. Let's listen for an hour. And I think there's this arc to a conversation that I really love and really appreciate. And so I feel like whenever I'm talking to someone, there comes a point where I realize, oh, we're at that moment. And we're finally getting to the really good stuff. But I don't want to just edit to that part. I think there's something, it's sort of like a great Beethoven symphony. You listen for 25 minutes till you get to the moment and it all pays off. And so I feel like that's the way a great conversation is. There have been times, certainly, that things have been controversial. Usually things like when activities that we love start to change or new things happen. For example, any brass instrument, when they do, like bring in electronics, bring in trombones, those conversations don't always go the way that I think. But the thing about the podcast, the Marching Roundtable, is we try to always be respectful to each other. It's not like, I don't want it to be like one of those political talk shows where everybody's just yelling at each other and talking on top of each other. We want to have a lot of excitement and energy that comes from the conversations, but we don't really want to talk down to each other. And there have been a few times when it's been disappointing, when I feel like somebody on the panel has sort of gone on the attack or been a little unkind to someone, and those are the times that have been most disappointing. But I can tell you those are very rare. More recently, or more of the time, I'm sitting there maybe, and I record in my office, we record on Skype or some other on the webinar system or something where it's really me with my headphones on and the other people are wherever they are. And sometimes we can see each other, sometimes we can't. But there have been a number of times where we're having this really wonderful, serious, poignant conversation. I'm sitting there in my office with tears running down my face, and I'm just thinking, this is really moving me, and I'm so honored and grateful that I get to share that kind of thing with the people that'll be listening.
I think all of us in Color Guard, Marching Band Drum Corps, owe Tim Hinton and his Marching Roundtable colleagues a great deal of gratitude for all that they have done to support, encourage, and provide a resource to all of us. So it was a true pleasure getting to talk to Tim, and I certainly hope that all of you have enjoyed this edition of our Color Guard Insiders.